The extreme BPM, Tuesdays and Fridays, that is 8 p.m. East African time. So Tuesdays and Fridays, that's when I get to talk to people that make the music, but always hang out with me. That is Monday through Friday. That is on the Aegis Mix, 1 to 2 p.m. East African time. That's when we get to play most of the music. You get to listen to a lot of new music from amazing musicians you get to hear from across the world. So Tuesdays and Fridays, we get to hang out, talk about the music, and what the inspiration behind this, some of the music you hear, and also you get to know the musicians that we get to play on the show. So today on the show, uh we played the song. I think on the Aegis Mix it has appeared on a couple of times, but on for the extreme BPM it's the first time on the show. But I remember I had a song from you a few years ago, and
Mm,
yeah, I remember because when I received this I was like, why does it feel like I had already received something from you? And I think what I had received from you was from Lookup.
Look Up. Yes, that's exactly it. Yes, Look Up was like a year and a half ago.
Yes. And
Yeah.
so at the moment, the brand new single that is out right now is Here I Am. Honey is on the show. Welcome to the show. How are you? How is everything going for you?
Oh, I'm good. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm doing well. Life, like I said, is just really busy right now, and always going through to the next thing, but trying to stay present in every moment because every moment is such a blessing. And sometimes we're just so used to living in each moment, breathing each moment without even thinking about it. So when we stop and think about it and take recognition, it really is like all this gratitude just fills your being and you're able to move on to the next thing with a lot of gratitude. So it's a good way for me to live personally.
Yeah, absolutely. And when I talked about having you on a year ago, but before we get into that, let's start off with the music. How does this get started for you?
Music in general is just something that has always been something very relevant in my life. I started singing when I was 5 years old. I started kind of making way in theater when I was around 7 or 8, and I ended up graduating from high school and going off to New York City, where I ended up going to NYU. And I went there for acting and music, and then later learned that I didn't want to follow a script anymore and decided to start making my own music. So I moved out to Los Angeles and wrote and recorded an EP of 5 songs in 5 days. And before you know it, it was out and I was making pop music. And but so much has happened since the beginning of that. And the journey has come a long way. And I don't know how deep you want me to go into that, but that's kind of where it all started, just from a young age, singing Celine Dion, Whitney Houston, all the pop divas were just like oh my gosh, like I would love to be like that someday. So, but it all stemmed from there and it's never really stopped. And that's kind of how I began the whole music journey.
Yeah. So when you're doing pop music, you put out an EP of 5 songs, right?
Mhm. Yes.
So then what changed? Because the music we are playing currently, you changed somewhere along the way.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
pivoted.
there's a it's a long story, but we have a little bit of time, and I can just say that when I moved out to Los Angeles, I really lost myself. I tried to develop an identity based around what the industry wanted, what people wanted, what would make me sell and catch eyes. And I changed my appearance. I hung out in places that I was just trying to like make all the connections. And eventually I spiraled. I ended up spiraling really hard. I can honestly say I identify as an alcoholic and an addict. I'm someone who it's when I get something too much of it, I keep going and I don't know how to stop. And it's just a thing in my brain. It's not like I'm the problem or I'm an issue. It's my brain works a certain way. So I know where to say no and where to say yes now and stuff like that. But when I was living out in Los Angeles, I didn't have that thing in my brain saying when to stop or when to this or that. So a lot happened to me. I went through a lot of crazy things, probably that a lot of people have gone through and maybe don't want to talk about, or maybe things that they do because it helps. But music was the way for me to help me through a lot of the trauma that I experienced when I was out there, and who I was at that time. You know, I mean, I don't put the blame on like a place or people. I put the blame on myself, and I take that. And I think at the time I didn't know. I just didn't. I was so caught up in the chaos of the just everything going on, and drinking and drugs and all these things, that eventually I just couldn't afford to live out there anymore. I moved back to Minnesota, and I moved in with my family, and thought that by going back to my roots I could find myself again. And it took me a good year to go through the stuff that I went through in LA here, to realize it's not going to change unless you change, unless you make a change. So I ended up going and getting an analysis done, and I entered recovery. And you know, when I was born and raised, I was always a church goer. You know, my mom would bring me to church, my dad would bring me to church. I was an altar server. I did all these things. I grew up Catholic, which was very like rigid for me. I felt like it was like a star system. Like if you went to church, you got your gold star. Okay, go the next week, you know. And it hit home with me because at the time when I was a kid, I was a very like doer, you know. I did my homework. So the gold star system worked for me. But growing up, I'm like, I want to be myself. Like I want to be who I am and all this stuff. And I thought that there had to be like a lot of restrictions on that. But after getting sober and going back to church, I'm getting chills right now. But after getting sober and going back to church, something just changed in me. I feel like a lot of people don't truly know what deep love is for yourself. I think that we're all so busy trying to like give ourselves to like fit in and to make it work for us so that we can feel that back. And something just changed. Suddenly I felt like I didn't need a single person's love. I needed my own self to love myself. And I know that that feeling was from the Lord. I felt the Lord come in and say, you are enough. You're smart enough. You're strong enough. What you look like is just part of all of this experience. You know, people look this way, people look that way. I had a lot of self-image issues growing up. I had eating disorders, all these things. So they stemmed and they grew as I got older. But when I got sober and I found the love of the Lord again, I just, it all changed. I'm like, there isn't a feeling like this that I can get anywhere else. And there's not a peace I can get from anyone else like this. And I thought to myself, you know, if anybody else is going through what I've been through before, with addiction, with the darkness, with hating yourself, literally not caring if you live through the night, then this is what my purpose is. My purpose is to make music for the one who saved me, saved my life, allowed me to start loving myself again, and to turn other people to the same source where I found my love, so that they too can love themselves and see that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. It's not all darkness here, and you can be yourself even in a religion. You can apply who you are to your spirituality, to what it all is. So the Lord, and I believe the Lord isn't looking at you and saying you're all these things and blah 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 blah. He's like, I know who you are. I know where you've been. I know what you're doing, and I know what you're gonna do tomorrow, and you don't even know. And I love you through it all, and you're awesome. Don't worry about it. Give it up to me, and you'll see what happens. That's just kind of the point of this song and where I'm at, and actually writing and making music now.
Yep, that was an interesting part, you know, because at the start, usually people, when they hear people having a struggle with any addiction, they usually think that probably you grew up with an alcoholic in the house, or you grew up with a drug addict in the house. You grew up
Yeah.
in a Catholic home, and I've been I studied from Catholic school, so I know how strict they are.
Oh, yes, absolutely. So it was kind of like that rigid, like routine. It's like, I
Yeah.
gotta free myself up. I gotta let go, and that's where it came from. And I mean, and I'm both, you know what I mean? Like I am still a person who can go out and let go, but like not hurt other people and ruin other lives because of my poor decisions. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and at the time when you were in LA, so what was the turning point for you? When did you realize that? When did you realize that it was a bit,
Time.
I've gone too far, or it's time to change my life? Did you have that self-realization at the time?
Yeah, I was going to Mosaic Church out in Los Angeles, still amidst all the chaos. I'd still find myself like waking up on Sunday morning, being like, all right, go, just go. And I would. And it's like these messages would just ring so true to me. Erwin McManus is our pastor, and he just had so many powerful things to say, and they would hit me. And every time they would hit me, I knew it was the Lord saying, stop what you're doing. And I'd be like, well, I got my gold star, so it's okay. I can go drink and have brunch now with the ladies, and get carried away with it because I came here, so I did the right thing, even though I'm not going and doing the right thing after. It's like what you take from that and how you bring it forward in your week, not just hear it and let it go in and out, but the messages really sat with me. And I think they started to change my heart. Plus, I couldn't stand the job I was in at the time, and I wasn't happy. And I'm like, maybe I'll find my happiness in the comfort of my home again, knowing that the people I know there love me, won't judge me, all these things. But even when I got back to Minnesota, I was really still struggling. And I had my family being like, girl, like, we got to get you back. Like, we got to make sure you're doing better. And it's like, hearing them say to me, because I could hide when I was in LA, no one was out there with me, so I could do whatever I wanted, but they held me accountable. And I think like seeing the pain in their eyes every time I'd look at them when I'd be drunk or I'd be whatever, I think it made me change, because love makes people do that. Sacrifice and love go so strongly hand in hand, and there has to be some type of sacrifice sometimes. And for me, it was sacrificing the bottle, and look what I've gained from it. So, yep.
So how long has this been, and how long have you been, with recovery?
Over. Sure, sure. Oh, I went through a lot of legal things actually in end of 19 to 2020, right when COVID was starting actually. And I was so grateful because I wasn't grateful for COVID per se, because who would be grateful for that? But and there was a lot of awful things. Yeah.
But sitting down and having some time to reflect, and
Sitting down and taking some time to reflect is actually a very honest, real thing. And I will say that for me, it was the best thing that could have happened for me during the time it did, because I didn't have an opportunity to go to that bar on the street or go to that place or meet up with those people, because everything was under lock and key. Nobody could go out. We were all under kind of house arrest. And and I every time I got that like urge to like go out, I would find a different thing. What was nice was that our recovery, so July 4th was the last day I ever drank, July 4th, 2020. And that is the United States' Independence Day, 4th of July. So we like to go ham, we like to go crazy. And I was like, you know what? I had my analysis done. I'm being entered into not an AA based recovery system, which is I believe it's a male started like system, 12 steps, and it's great. It works for a lot of people. Mine was different. Mine was a trauma based recovery system. So I got to go through my childhood and go through like my adolescent years and like all these things, and see my life for what it was. And I think once July 5th hit, I was like, that's my sober day. That's going to be my sober day because my last time I'm going to drink is going to be July 4th when we all go crazy. And then the 5th will be I'll be starting my new journey. And I did. And I didn't think I was going to do it for that long. I thought maybe like a few weeks, but I started my recovery groups, which were on Zoom calls like this. So I had those 4 days, 3 to 4 days a week for 3 hours every night so that I couldn't go out or go to a friend's house or whatever. I'd be on these group calls talking with 20, 30 ladies and being led by a peer recovery specialist. And she was incredible. She had so many amazing things to say that helped me learn about myself and learn about my deeper self too, not just like this thing, like the thing in. And after that, I was like, oh no, I'm all in on this. Like, I want to know me. I want to know me. How many people in their lives just sit and take courses about who they are? We're all so busy learning about that person's life or that person or that new fad or trend or thing. It's like, do you ever just like sit and reread your story? And I got to reread mine and it helped me understand myself and love myself a lot more. And so I've been sober now for 4 years, a little over 4 years, July 5th. And the journey has been an incredible one. And I'm not saying everybody needs to not drink or, that, because it was like I was saying the other day to my boyfriend, actually, I was saying, it's interesting how, one of the sins, I believe, was like gluttony. It's like overindulgence and stuff. And it's interesting because I used to think like people who drink are only drinking to avoid their problems. Like that was early honey recovery mindset. And now I'm like, no, that's not true. It's just I've got a mindset that veers towards gluttony. So I need to like chill on certain things. And other people don't. They can have one glass of wine and be cool with it. And I'm like, that's not a thing to, I mean, that's a thing to embrace and to celebrate. Like how cool that you can have a glass of wine. I can't. I'm gonna have some Coca-Cola.
Yeah, yeah.
Get
Yeah,
that
but
sugar up.
yeah, get that sugar up and yeah. But first, congratulations on that. And glad to see you on this journey of recovery. You've managed to, and learn different things about yourself, even about your childhood. And sometimes it's like I grew up when I think I grew up around everybody that drank. My parents did drink. Everybody around me was drinking. But
Mhm.
the only reason I stayed away from it, I tested it before and I was like, this doesn't taste right. But
Mm.
the only reason that kept me away from it was that I never wanted to see some people, because we used to have a bar too, and I didn't want to see certain people the way they behave. They would come in well and they're great after a few drinks in there, and then you're like, this is someone different now at this moment. They don't even know what is going on. They come in saying, oh, I've just been paid at my job, and they literally drink everything completely. And then later they come in the morning saying, did someone rob me or steal from me or something? And you're like, no, 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 you are busy giving it out to everybody. You are giving
Yeah.
everybody.
Oh, I hear that. I've been there before. I'm like, who stole my credit card? Oh, it's in my wallet. It was me.
Yeah.
Come
So
on.
so it always like gave me like, I always like the worry was more on the what happens later rather than just hating the alcohol. So it was more like turning into someone else. That was usually the fear. So
Yeah.
and that's how it has become always. And up to this moment, I don't drink anything. Even when they tell me you don't drink anything, or we like at social events, like, oh, you can take wine. I'm like, as long as there's something called alcohol in it, I'm staying away
Yeah.
from it.
Love it. I love it. It's just because we know like what's for us and what's not for us because we know ourselves. And that's it.
Yeah, it's absolutely, it's a mess.
Yeah.
It's not something. I think I needed to experience, because I remember when we were in school a bit young, I tried, and then I think a friend of mine said something I never even hear. I've never even heard what they said, right? And I
Yep.
turn around and I shove them back, and then I almost start fighting with them. And then when we get out, we are seated, and I'm like, "What did you say to me?" And he said, I didn't say anything to you. I just saw you just coming over to my side, showing me up. I didn't even know what was going on. I was like, I don't know what happened, but this is probably why I shouldn't
Yeah.
do this.
Yep. Oh, you want to know how many times that happened to me for 7 years straight? Like where literally every night, it wasn't even like Monday, Tuesdays I took off. Nope. Mondays, Tuesdays, I was still out until 1, 2 in the morning. And I had to be up at 6 a.m. for work. And I'm like, is this gonna be every day for the rest of my life? Like, what am I gonna do? Like, I can't get off of this roller coaster. But when I finally just jumped, I'm like, oh, okay, I got a parachute. I'm okay. You know?
Yeah, it's amazing, and it's good even to hear, how that changed your life, and how, you've found and even changed the music you're making, because you could have kept along the music could have kept the same, and you're still sober but do the music, but you realize that you need to use your voice for something else
Yeah.
rather than just make the music, but you wanted to also maybe impact someone else's life, right?
Yeah, and that's the thing too. It's kind of funny. I actually you can hear in my music too, because I got sober when I was still recording pop music. So it's kind of funny because you have songs like I have two artist pages on Spotify specifically. One is Honey, and that's all my pop music, and then Honey Rebar, which is my full name, which is my Christian catalog. So the Honey, you can see the last few songs I released at the tail end there are still pop songs. So I kept them on the Honey page, but they're my recovery like anthems. So you got songs like Sleeping Ugly, and you got songs like you've got songs like well, Look Up is on the Honey Rebar category, but because that's more going into the Christian vibe. But Sleeping Ugly and Stable are two songs that I wrote literally about recovery and like feeling ugly during those times and like not yourself, but like at least you're making the choices that are moving you forward. And then same with the other stuff. It's just like how I was able to like pick myself back up and kind of like inspiration for others to do the same. And then the Honey Rebar page, you start to see the music's becoming more about something bigger than just the self. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's the new single that is out right now, guys, listening in right now on the Extreme BPM on eJazz Radio and eJazz Extra. It's Here I Am, Glorify You, right? So Here I
Yep.
Am, Glorify You, coming in from Honey. So what as along this journey now, we already all the way throughout the, getting through to the year. We have a few months to the end of the year. What are you working on as far as the future projects?
Oh my gosh. There's okay, so here's what I do, just so you got a little idea of what I do during the year. I work a day job. So music isn't my only thing. I work a day job so that I can support myself to do all these things as well. Um, so I'm working to make music. And the music is all recorded typically at one time of the year. So I'll typically go out to Los Angeles in March and we'll record for 4 days and we'll get about 6 songs in that 4 day session. We'll write 2 songs a day and then we'll record 2 songs a day. So by day 4, day 5, we're done. And we've got 6 songs or 5 songs ready to sprinkle throughout the year. So when I went out in March, I recorded a batch of 5 new songs. And I think my last release, Everywhere, was part of the year before. So Here I Am actually was just written in March. And I have another song coming out next month, end of September, called Walk With You. And that's more of like an up-tempo bop one. And then I've got 2 more songs still hopefully coming up by the end of the year. But if not, we'll have Walk With You next, and then one other song before the end of the year, and then it'll start all the way back again in 2025, and I'll be releasing 5, 6 new songs in the year too, and maybe even a album of some sort. I know that I have this full Christian catalog now, so I am going to be putting it on a full-length album, but adding some more songs in there for sure for 2025. But in the meantime, 2 new songs this year coming out after Here I Am, Glorify You.
Yeah, absolutely. So So the brand new single that is up right now, "Here I Am," "Glorify," is what you're going to play as we get to the end of the show. But for people that want to connect with you, where would you send them?
Oh my gosh, you can follow me on all the social media platforms, but I would say I am most active and engaged on Instagram and TikTok, of course. But otherwise, you've got my website. It's just honeyrebar.com, and my last name is RIBAR.com. You can contact me through that. And I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn, all the sources. Just Honey Rebar. I'm probably the only one. I don't really know any other Honey Rebars. So I think you'll find me. And feel free to direct message me. I do reply to people. I know a lot of times people are like, I'm not going to message anybody because they don't respond back. I do. I find that the opposite of addiction is connection. So the more chats I have going on, and I'm all about it. So feel free to message me and share your story with me. And I love hearing everybody else's story too.